I've often said around our work with NCEA Rise, our assessments for religious education and community health is you can't grow what you don't measure, right? And so, with that, why do you think it's
Right.
important?
Yeah.
Why do you think it's important to assess? You and I, prior to the podcast, we were talking about why acre and the IFG, why the belonging index, why they're so important, not just to know what our kids know about the faith, but what's going on underneath all that, their feelings, their beliefs, their perceptions. Maybe can you address that, the need to assess?
Yeah, and I want to talk about Acre, Rise and Acre and IFG and belonging because I not only do I think it's important, I'm living it every day. And let me tell you what I mean. In so many schools where I go to, even the most well-intentioned, loving of Catholic schools, they if they're not measuring if they're not measuring faith formation, if they're not measuring where their students are at in terms of their personal relationship with God. You see, if you're a bullied student, or if you're just a student, what I call an invisible student, the kid who would fit under that belonging index because they they disappear into the woodwork.
Right.
It's that child who may not be bullied per se, may not be even intentionally excluded. They just don't feel this sense of belonging or family within that school environment. Well, if that child is struggling, religion and religious education, it can't just be theory and nice stories. And Jesus did this, and the apostles did this. It's got to be personal. It's got to be a deep emotional resource and reservoir for strength. These kids have to make the leap between what they're studying in religion and how it can help them navigate the storm and not feel alone. From the perspective of the bully, there are two types of bullies in a school. The the You have the normal bully just who picks on everyone, and then you have the elite tormentor. That's the mean popular kid who uses their popularity to wield influence, often negatively. Their wonderful, kind counterpart is the elite tormentor, or the elite leader. I'm sorry, the elite leader. Well, if you've got the bully or the elite tormentor behaving in ways that are unkind, often they don't even recognize it. I go and do my student presentations, and a lot of these kids come up to me in tears after and say, "Oh my gosh, I never knew that just not sitting with someone at lunch or just not smiling back at someone could be so hurtful," and they want to make amends. That's
Hmm.
where measuring kids' faith formation is so important because they look at the big stories and they look at the larger questions of their faith, but how do you take what you're learning in religion, the physical nuts and bolts of what you're learning, and use it to create comfort in your own heart when you need Jesus as your friend,
Right.
and to recognize when you need to be more like Jesus because you may be hurting someone. So measuring this, so many schools don't measure it, but it's critical.